Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of the Grade 12 Geography Cap series. If you're new to this channel, I'm Andrew Commander and I try to make geography as simple as possible. And I'd like to welcome you to our channel and hopefully we'll be able to break down some of the concepts you might have found difficult. And for the returning subscribers, thank you for tuning in again. And let's keep sharing this channel so it grows even bigger and bigger. Now in today's lesson, we'll be looking at rural settlement issues. So we'll break down some of the issues that rural settlements have, and we'll also talk about land reform, guys, social justice issues. And I think this topic is one of the concepts that is poorly understood by students, and so I will try as much as I can to break it down for you. Okay, so let's go to our CAPS document and see how far we are and what we still have to break down. So if you remember well, in the last episode we did discuss how site and situation affect the location of rural settlements. We also broke down the classification of rural settlements according to pattern and function, and also discussed the reasons for different shapes of settlements. And what we did not do is talk about land use in rural settlements. And when I think about it now, I should have just done that because it's quite simple. The land use in a rural settlement is predominantly agriculture, right? The rural settlement being a unifunctional settlement, it makes sense, right? So agricultural activities take the majority of the land use, right? So today, as I said, we'll be looking at rural settlement issues. We'll break down rural-urban migration. So breaking down rural-urban migration, we'll take a look at its causes and its impact. And so particularly rural depopulation impact on the people and the economy of rural areas. And of course discuss the strategies that we can use to address this issue. And lastly, we'll discuss the social justice issues that we get in rural areas, such as your access to resources and land reform. So that's what we'll be covering in today's lesson, right? So without wasting any time, guys, let's get into it. So now one of the issues that we get in rural settlements is the issue of rural-urban migration. Okay, so we'll first have to describe it, and this is one of the topics that is very, very common, guys. It's very rare to find any geography question paper 2 without rural urban migration. So it's of high importance that you master this topic. Okay, so this term is quite a self-explanatory term. So as you can see, rural urban migration. So migration is a movement of people, right? But now moving from rural areas to urban areas. Okay, and so when we define it, we say this is a movement of people from rural areas to urban areas. It's as simple as that, guys, right? So that's how you define it, and that is 2 marks, right? So you can never get this wrong, right? The movement of people from rural areas to urban areas, right? Now, why would people want to move away from rural areas towards urban areas? So you have to be able to explain that. So the causes of rural urban migration. So we break down these causes into 2. Okay, we have push factors and pull factors. I hope you can see this, guys. Let me just zoom in. So you have push factors. Now, push factors are the reasons why would people want to move away. It's what pushes them away. Push factors are the reasons why people move away from rural areas. Okay, so what pushes them away from these rural areas? Okay, so what is in here that makes them want to move or go away? Okay, so I've written some of these here. So the first reason why you would want to move away from rural areas is that rural areas lack job opportunities. Okay, if there are any jobs, you're going to find out that jobs pay so little that it is very difficult to survive on that salary. So it's difficult to pay your expenses, to feed your family with a low wage, right? So because there's lack of jobs, people move away. So that's really a simple point there, guys. And you're usually going to find out that you have a job in town, and town is a lot of kilometers from where you reside, and so you spend a lot of money on transport, and that consumes a huge chunk, takes away a huge amount of money from your salary that you get. Okay, such that you are left with a very small amount to survive on. Okay, so that's one point there: lack of jobs or low salary. And the second reason why people move away from rural areas is natural hazards or the presence of drought or flooding. Okay, so these make it difficult for you to have, let's say, a successful farming business. Okay, so it's flooding a lot and you lose a lot of your produce, you lose a lot of your seeds, your soil gets eroded, or there's no presence of water at all. So it would be very difficult to have a sustainable farm, usually in rural areas, particularly if you rely on rain and rivers, right? So natural hazards, this is what we call an environmental push factor. Okay, so this is an environmental reason why you would want to move away from rural areas. The third point is poor education. Okay, so you're going to find out that educational facilities, your schools, are in poor condition. There's a shortage of teachers, there's no chairs, there's no equipment. It's just very difficult to have an education, a proper, normal, education. And it is highly possible that this poor education will indeed affect their future. And so poor educational facilities, poor equipment, poor state of education is also the reason why families or parents move away from rural areas with their children to find areas with better education. Right, so poor education is the third point. Another point is the poor infrastructure. There's many incidences we see in media where children have to cross a river, a huge river, to get to school because there's no bridges, there's no roads, and the terrain is just unstable. It damages vehicles. So if you have a car, going to find out that your car always needs repairs because of the road. It is not in good conditions. There are no stable roads. So the poor infrastructure, we are talking here power lines, for an example. So there's no electricity in some rural areas. Okay, so it's very difficult to also connect to the world or to the internet so that the children can learn, and transportation is expensive because of this. And so that's another reason that pushes people away from rural areas. Another reason is the poor service delivery. Going to find out that there's no waste collection, taking into consideration that we have a right to a clean environment. We're also going to find out that police stations are far away from these villages, and also taking into account the poor infrastructure, poor roads, it's very difficult to get help quickly. You talk about water, for an example, there's no water, right? There's no electricity, as I've mentioned. And so that's what we are referring to when we talk about poor service delivery there. You have poor medical services, so your hospitals, your clinics, first of all, they are very far from the villages. You have to get transport, and that transport is costly. And you find out that these medical facilities are in very poor conditions. There's no equipment that the doctors can use in order to help you. They are such under-resourced such that it's quite difficult for them to even help people or clients with specific diseases or conditions. Okay, so poor medical services. There's poor housing as well. Everyone has a right to a shelter, but in rural areas, that's not the case. Okay, so these are some of the reasons. There's quite a lot more reasons why you would want to move away from rural areas. That's why people move away. Okay, no jobs, natural hazards, poor education and healthcare, poor infrastructure, poor services, poor housing. And so you would want to move away to have a better quality of life, have better opportunities, so that you can be able to live comfortably, live happily, achieve your goals, so on and so on. Right, so these are the push factors. Okay, so when I talk about push factors, just think of rural areas. Okay, what is not there? So I think that would really help to sort of recall all of these. Right, now let's get into the pull factors. What pulls people towards cities, urban areas, right? So what is there in the urban areas that you would want to move there. So pull factors are the reasons why people move towards or move to urban areas. So these are some of the reasons why people want to be there in urban areas. What do they see there that is in urban areas such that they want to move to these areas? So first reason is that there's better job opportunities, right? So in urban areas, there's definitely better job opportunities. There's many industries, there's many businesses here that employ a lot of people, and so of course that means better job opportunities. So when you have industries, that means you have jobs. When you have businesses that in that particular area, that means you're going to employ people, and so hence better job opportunities. Whereas in rural areas, there's no jobs because there's the lack of industries, there's the lack of investments in businesses. There's no industries there, or there are very few businesses, and hence very few jobs. Now, one thing I want to also mention, guys, is that over time, if you think about this, in urban areas, there's going to be a lot of people moving to urban areas, right? Because there's better job opportunities. And so this means that urban areas will be crowded. It will be overpopulated, right? And so this means that there's going to be a shortage of jobs here as well. Okay. And so that is what is also occurring, guys. As much as there is better job opportunities in urban areas than in rural areas, it's also important to mention that there is no guarantee that you're going to find a job in urban areas as well. Okay, so we're just comparing urban areas to rural areas, because a lot of people are unemployed in urban areas. So we'll talk more about that in the coming topics, but it's important that we note that there's better education. Okay, so comparatively, there's better education in urban areas, better equipment. There's more technology that is used now in schools. You're going to find out a lot of teachers move to urban areas because of these better job opportunities, better facilities, better equipment. Okay, and because there's better infrastructure, that also makes it easy for the students to arrive there, because the roads are in good condition. You have power lines, you have electricity, access to internet, so on and so on, right? There's a better service delivery. Okay, so we're not saying that the delivery is not poor in some parts of the urban areas, but comparatively, compared to rural areas, there is indeed better service delivery there. There's also something that we call the bright light syndrome. So what we mean there is that the urban areas presents a huge opportunity. Okay, I've tried to draw these lines to show, to represent the dream that people sort of have when they see urban areas. They see this paradise where there is an abundance of opportunities, where everything is possible. Okay, so the bright light syndrome can also mean the entertainment side. Okay, so there's better recreation this side. There's clubs, people who like to get entertained. There's clubs, there's all sorts of recreational facilities, entertainment, a lot of festivals, okay, in urban areas. And so that's what we are referring there to with the bright lights point there. Okay, I've already mentioned better infrastructure. There's also better medical services. I don't know how I got this there. Better medical services, better hospitals, better clinics compared to rural areas. Okay, so now a lot of people now will want to move away from rural areas and towards urban areas. Now let's think about the numbers, right? So you had a lot of people, okay, a particular number of people that were living in rural areas, but now because of these better job opportunities that they see in urban areas, the better education, the bright lights, the better infrastructure, the better medical services, and compare that to what they have in rural areas, the lack of jobs, the drought, poor education, poor medical services, poor infrastructure, poor service delivery. Of course, people will reduce in terms of the numbers. Okay, there will be less and less, and a decline in the number of people living in rural areas. So people will move. So that's what the result is of rural urban migration, is that people now will decrease in rural areas, and we have a term for that. We call that rural depopulation. Okay, so D means decrease. Okay, so now people will decrease in numbers, right? So rural depopulation is simply that decrease in the number of people living in rural areas because of the push factors and the pull factors. Okay, this rural depopulation will then have consequences. It will have an impact on the economy. It will have an impact on the environment. It will have an impact on the social lives of people, right, that are remaining in the rural areas. So first of all, you're going to have people moving out, and so this means that the labor force will be decreased. So a number of people that can potentially work will decrease, and of course those are people, and so this means that customers will decrease. So if I'm a business, this implies that I'm not going to have any labor force, no employees. I'm not going to have any customers. So why would I stay there? Why would I remain in such an area? It's not good for business. Okay, so businesses will close, which leads to unemployment. So it will lead to further unemployment. Yes, there are already no jobs because there's a few businesses, and so because now a lot of people will move, this will further exacerbate this, and hence more employment will result. Okay, because businesses close. And you're going to find out that a majority of the people that leave rural areas are young people. So it's young people that leave these rural areas to look for better job opportunities because they are at the age of working, right? The working age. They are the age of school. So they are still looking for varsities. There's no varsities. There are few varsities, higher education facilities or educational institutions in rural areas. A lot of these varsities, a lot of these universities, you're going to find them in urban areas. So hence a lot of young people will move. Now this will change the demography of the rural area, because now the population that will be left is a population of old people. So this will leave an aging population, and an aging population is very much vulnerable to crime. So now this means now crime will increase in rural areas. By the way, guys, these are separate points, okay? Right? We are going to also see brain drain. So what brain drain means, this is the emigration or the movement of skilled people. So we are going to lose our skilled people, skilled individuals who could have created businesses that would have employed a lot of people, who could have came with strategies to improve some of the issues that rural areas face. Okay, you're going to find out that there's going to be a few new investments or no investments at all, because, well, the market is small. There's no customers, right? Who am I going to sell to there? Okay, because there's a few people left. It's not going to be a very lucrative investment. I'm not going to sell like every day or make a huge profit because there's a small number of people there. So I'm expecting to make a small income. Whereas if I'm in urban area, I know that it is congested, it is a nucleated pattern. A lot of people are found there, and so there I'm going to definitely generate a lot of income. Another thing here, another reason why there's going to be a few investments is because the infrastructure is poor. So if I'm a businessman and I buy my stock from town and I use my truck or my buggy, I'm going to have to repair it every time, because the roads damage my car every time. The property value will decrease. Well, so property value goes with demand. How many people want to stay there? How many people want to have that land? If there's a few people who want to have that particular land, then the demand is low. If the demand is low, the prices go down. So the property value will decrease. No one wants to, very few people want to buy land in rural areas, such that in some areas you're going to find out that the traditional leaders there, they will just give you land for free. Okay, you don't buy any land. The land is like free. It is not expensive because it has a low demand, and so that's what we mean by property value. So if you want to sell your house, no one would want to buy a house if there's free land. Okay, so So that is the consequences of rural depopulation there, guys, or the consequences of rural urban migration. So what can we do to counteract this movement of people? We don't want people to move because it worsens the situation. As you can see, these are the consequences. And so what can we do to prevent this movement, right? So first of all, we can improve service delivery and facilities, such as educational facilities, medical facilities in rural areas, so that we prevent people from leaving. That's why people are leaving, right? They're leaving because there's poor service delivery, poor educational facilities. Improve education. Try to find incentives so that teachers, good quality teachers, work there. Government must provide proper modern equipment, technology, so that it makes it easier for the teachers to facilitate the content and ensure that medical facilities are of good quality, that patients get helped really quickly, and government should invest in equipment, costly, expensive equipment that would help people with some conditions that require those particular machines. Okay, so we need to improve that. If you want people to stay, then improve the service delivery, improve education, improve medical facilities. There's many ways you can do that. I don't know if you guys know, but I read that teachers get a particular allowance for working in rural areas. That is, I guess, one of the ways, one of the incentives to sort of draw teachers towards rural areas, right? So there's many ways you can do that, improve education and services. Okay, another way of improving your service delivery, you should increase the budget allocation. So every government, provincial, local, municipalities, they get a particular budget. They are given money, they are given funds, so that they are able to meet these demands, these basic needs that are required daily by our people. And so improve infrastructure. Okay, remember we talked about the roads. Well, if I improve the road and I promote the local raw materials, insert power lines, right, this is going to indeed attract investments. I would want to have a business there in a particular rural area if they have a better road. Okay, so that is going to be easy for me to transport my goods, my stock, okay, to my clients, so on and so on. And they should promote these local raw materials so that you have businesses. And if at that particular area, that particular rural area has a lot of farms, commercial farms that sell sugar cane, for an example, through promotion, I would want to open business there, open a business that will process those that sugar cane into sugar, right? And in that way, I'm also employing people, right? So that's how we can attract investment, improve the infrastructure, improve the road, improve power lines, have power lines inserted there, have electricity there, right? Promote that local raw material so that investors can put in money to open these businesses. Offer incentives. Okay, incentive is a way to motivate something or someone to do a particular thing. So let's say in class, maybe let's say your teacher would give you an incentive. Let's say they would could say in this particular test, everyone who gets 80% and above, I will give them 150 rands. So that is an incentive. You are motivating the students to perform well, right? So that's what an incentive is. So we're saying that offer incentives for industries to be located in rural areas. What could be those incentives? Well, it could be tax related. Okay, maybe let's say if you open an industry in this particular rural area, then you are going to pay 10% less tax than you usually pay, or you're going to pay no tax or something like that, so that we have these industries, more of these industries go into these rural areas and open there. Restore recreational facilities, promote festivals, right? So there should be festivals there, not only during December or June. Festivals should be found during the year, any time. Okay, so recreational facilities like parks, Okay, ensure that there are parks, there are libraries, there are beautiful places that people can go to and enjoy themselves and spend money there that can be used by the municipality to improve some of the services. Okay, so in other words, invest in these rural areas. Okay, so by festivals, a lot of people will go there, and of course the rural area will generate income there and use that income to invest in itself again and ensure that they respond to what the people need. Provide loans or subsidies to local farmers or new business owners. Okay, so a lot of farmers want to start a business, but now in order to start a business, you need capital, you need money that you can inject into the business and buy seeds, buy livestock, so on and so on. So you don't have that money because it's usually very costly to do so. So provide these loans to these new farmers. Provide subsidies. So subsidies, these are funds that are given by the government to help businesses grow. Okay, so by giving you this subsidy, you can use this subsidy as a capital to open a business. Okay, so I'm supporting you as a government, right? So by opening a business, you are not only employing people, but you are also training them or giving them a particular skill that they can use in their future to teach another person, and so on, so that they can self-sustain themselves. Educate farmers on sustainable farming techniques to self-sustain and create job opportunities. Okay, so you're going to find out that farmers, even though you do have some farmers, but they are not trained well, and such that their businesses will spiral downwards, and at some point they will not be generating anything. So train these farmers so that they have these businesses lasting for decades and decades. Advertise towns. Okay, for an example, the Eastern Cape is beautiful, very beautiful. So these are areas where tourists would want to visit, but because it is not taken care of, these areas are just not in good shape. Let's invest in these areas, invite people here to come and see this beauty, and a lot of tourists would come here and spend their money, and we use that money to improve our communities further. There's many more, guys, there's many more strategies here that we can employ to try and counteract rural urban migration, prevent our people from moving away from our rural areas. Okay, so again, if you have any more to add, let's do that in the comments. Okay, so that is all that you have to know there. Rural urban migration, you have to know the causes, you have to know that it results in rural depopulation, and that rural depopulation has this particular impact, and this is what we can do to counteract that rural depopulation or rural urban migration. Okay, now we're going to move on then. So now we are only left with social justice issues in rural areas, and so that's what we are going to talk about now. Here, social justice, we first have to talk about that. What does it mean? When we speak of social justice, guys, you have to think about the basic rights that we have. We have a right to food, we have a right to shelter, we have a right to water and sanitation, we have a right to a clean environment. Okay, that's what social justice exactly entails. So when we talk of social justice, we are talking of individuals having rights or entitled to having their basic rights or basic needs met, and individuals having access to equal opportunities. You're going to find out that some areas have very poor service delivery than others, so it's really unfair. That's what we are referring to. These are the issues that we are referring to. Okay, some areas experience extreme poverty. Some areas and rural areas have no access to resources. They do not have access to land. That land was stolen or was taken away from them, right? The 1913 Lands Act dispossessed land from non-whites to the whites. So a lot of land was given to white people during the apartheid period, right? So now people do not have access to particularly arable land that is rich. People do not have access to basic needs. You're going to find that old people who should be living comfortably, are living in shacks or buildings or shelters of very poor quality. There's poor education that you're going to find in rural areas, whereas you find better education, as we've just discussed. You find better education in urban areas, excellent education in areas where you will find the rich. So it's unfair, right? So those are your social justice issues. You're going to find out there's no access to water and sanitation in rural areas. Now, some of these issues are caused by corruption. A lot of politicians, we've seen that they steal those funds that are allocated to address these issues, take them into their pockets, feed their own families. Of course, apartheid is a huge factor in this. In some areas, you're going to find out strikes actually were the reason why some resources are gone or services are not there anymore. Okay, so these are some of the reasons why these are here, or why we still have social justice today. Now, what can we do? What can be done? What are the strategies that we can implement to sort of improve this? Because this is like service delivery, right? So what can we do to improve the service delivery? Well, first of all, there should be larger budget allocations to meet demand. These communities are growing, and a lot more people need more services. So the services that they are providing are not enough to meet the demand. I should also mention that instead of these funds, because these funds now are given to particular individuals as tenders. So instead of giving tenders to individuals, this amount of money should be handled by community members, or it should be discussed, or community members should be very much involved in this. Okay, transparency is very important. So there should be no tenders. Funds should be given directly to or handled by community leaders, and ensure that transparency is there. Okay, community members should be involved in every step of the way. They should know how much was given and how much was consumed on what and why, right? Because that's who we are serving, right? The community members. So I just don't understand some of the strategies that we've employed for such a long time. Just doesn't make any sense. Knowing that we've experienced embarrassing corruption over the last decades. Okay, so involve communities in decision making. Okay, as I just discussed, guys, communities should be part of these. You cannot make decisions without going to the community itself and talking to community members. What do they need? What is the problem? What are the issues? Okay, and as I said, ensure that these funds are directed to them. Ensure that they are directed to community leaders, and that there is transparency. Okay, everyone should see how much, should be able to see how much is left and how much is spent and why is it spent, how so on and so on. Okay, so involve these in every decision you have to make. Involve community members. There should be monitoring and evaluation of service delivery. Use local skills to provide services. While we are providing these services, ensure that the people who are providing these services for us in this community are our people. Okay, so that will help improve the employment, because we have a huge issue with employment, right? So while talking about social issues, social justice issues, we should talk land reform, because land reform is its own topic, I guess. It can have its own question there. So what is land reform? You should be able to define it. Okay, land reform is a process of redressing. What is to redress, guys? Redress is to correct or make right what was wrong or what was not correctly done in the past. We come from apartheid. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we have to redress, we have to correct. So it is a process of correcting the injustice, the unfairness of the displacement. Okay, displacement is the removal or the people being taken away from their place. So displacement. So this is a process of redressing the injustice of displacement and forced removals that took place during apartheid. That's what we are correcting here. Land reform is basically correcting the unfair decisions of removing people from their land during apartheid. That is what land reform is. Okay, and this happened during 1913. In the 1913 Land Act. A lot of non-whites were dispossessed of their land. Their land was taken away unfairly. Taken away just like that, unfairly, just like that. So why is this important? Well, it is important to promote economic growth of those who were disadvantaged. So of course, if you have your land taken away from you, you no longer have an asset. You no longer have something that can generate income for you. You no longer have land. You can open a business from that land. Okay, you can have an agricultural business, any type of business. You can sell that land in exchange for income, for money, right? So we want to correct this so that those who were previously disadvantaged can now be able to generate income. Okay, so they can be able to gain economically. Number two, we are doing this to correct the unfairness, the wrongness, the imbalances, the inequality that was created by the apartheid. We are doing that to correct the wrongs of the apartheid. That is why this is important. A third point is to alleviate poverty, as most communities during apartheid lived on communal land. So when we talk about communal land, we are referring to a land that can be shared by people, right? So we are sharing this land. So it is communal community land. So in order to alleviate poverty, people should be given back their land that they deserve, that was theirs, and that could have saved them from poverty that they found themselves in now. Okay, so these are some of the points why land reform is important. If you have any more points, please let's add into that. Right? I don't know why I forgot to do this, but there are actually three ways, or there are three pillars of land reform. So 3 pillars of land reform are your land restitution, land redistribution, and land tenure. Right? So these are your 3 pillars of land reform. Okay, we are correcting these injustices with these strategies or policies. First way to do this is to implement land restitution. What is land restitution? Restitution, restore. Okay, give back. I had my land stolen, I want my land back. That's simply as simple as that. So restoring or giving back land to the families who were dispossessed of their land during the apartheid. Okay, so that is land restitution, returning the land back. I don't want another land. I want the land that my parents or my ancestors had access to, the land that was stolen, taken away from my ancestors. Okay, so that is land restitution there. And then there's land redistribution. So now you are giving new land. This is vacant land that the government can buy. So it can be bought by the state or the government and make it available for previously disadvantaged people, okay, to have access to. So government will buy land now and give it to people who were previously disadvantaged. Okay, so that is land redistribution. Okay, I'm sort of starting over, giving people land. Land restitution, I'm giving back the land that was stolen from your family. Okay, so I need us to be able to distinguish there between those. It's not very difficult. Okay, and then land tenure. This simply refers to the rights, the group of rights, the group of laws that involve land reform, land administration that involve this process, all this process, or the giving away of land, the buying of land, so on and so on. So we also have to improve these as well, improve the laws so that these processes can be done with no unfairness or injustices. Right, so that is land reform. Those are the 3 pillars of land reform. They are going to give you, let's say, a case study, and you have to answer questions based on that. But you have to know these definitions. You have to know why land reform is important, strategies, challenges, so on and so on. So I was still here. So now let's say we are giving people land back, or maybe redistributing land, or maybe restoring land. What can we do to ensure that the people that we have given land benefit from that land? So you've never been a farmer and you've just got this access to new land, and so how can you use that land to generate income through farming? So the government could really help in terms of making workshops available. So training, let's train these individuals, these new farmers, and mentor them to ensure that they use this land to the best of their abilities. Okay, we give them skills so that they can implement the farming skills they work from these they learn from these workshops, and therefore open businesses and self-sustain themselves. We should create market areas for trading. So what do we mean by this? Well, the government has just bought land, and this land, no one is staying here, right? And so if I'm going to open a business here, who am I going to sell to? Okay, so government has to ensure that they, for an example, improve the infrastructure, ensure that there are facilities here. They open schools, they build communities, basically, give people housing, create opportunities for people to come in here and want to be part of these communities, and so that I can have people to sell to, right, and buy from. Okay. Revising land reform policies. So we can always go back to these laws and try to improve them, make them better for the benefit of our people. Right. Again, if there's any more, guys, please add in there. Right. And then I have the challenges. So the challenges of implementing land reform. Okay. A lot of people still do not have their land back. Why is that? Well, first of all, that land was bought by a particular person, or that land was given to a particular person, and that person will surely not give it back for free. They will, of course, have a price. They might not be willing to even sell. Okay, so it's a costly process there, and the government has to find funds to ensure that they buy back this land, right? So that's the first point. Second point is that there's that willing buyer or seller clauses. Okay, so this should be clauses, CL. So a clause is like conditions in a contract. Okay, if this condition is met, or if this condition does not occur, then I cannot sell. If I do not receive funds by the end of this date, then I will not sell. So these are conditions, these are clauses, part of a contract that really delay the negotiation. There can also be disagreements between the government and traditional leaders. There's always been this sort of a vague way. We don't know where government and traditional leaders stand, who has higher authority, and how they should work together. And so it's quite an issue when government wants to go into these areas and want to take land, and traditional leaders, of course, are entitled to have a say there. Those disagreements that you have there between government and traditional leaders also delay these negotiations, and so it becomes quite difficult, becomes a challenge. Now, so this is all I have for today, guys. I really hope that was helpful. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, and we'll see you in the next one.